that's why, in my view, you hardly ever see a mystery written by a judge. Judges are the one group that really aren't supposed to have stories to tell at the end. You know, judicial discretion is more than just sitting on the bench. And there are just a few where a judge is a protagonist, and there are very few judges who write. Lawyers,
that would make sense.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it. But anyway, getting back to Neil, why is she in Albuquerque when you yourself are from New England?
Well, when I decided I wanted to write, I went and lived in San Miguel Allende, the writer's colony. First of all, New England, miserable. New England winters are miserable.
Ah, okay.
Regularly gets down to 20 below. It's dark at 4 in the afternoon. It's ice and snow all the time. So I used to escape and go to Latin America as much as I could in the winter. So I went to Mexico, and I lived down there for a year, and I started writing.
In San Miguel?
Yeah, in San Miguel Allende. And then there was sort of a natural gravitation to Santa Fe because a couple of people that I knew there were from Santa Fe, and I had a writers group there, and we all kind of ended up in Santa Fe. And it seemed like the closest thing to old Mexico in this country. And how did I end up in Albuquerque, writing about Albuquerque? I had a boyfriend who was a lawyer in Santa Fe, and he moved to Albuquerque, and he had the kind of small practice that Neil does, and he was really a strong reader of Raymond Chandler and Dashiell Hammett and those wonderful writers from the 40s and 50s, and he started me on those guys, and I was so knocked out by Raymond Chandler and his style and his poetry and the beauty of his writing, and I thought, well, it'd be just fun to try this with a woman, make her a lawyer, because I knew more about law than I did about PIs, and also it seemed more of a contemporary thing to do, and Albuquerque had kind of a sun-baked seediness that reminded me of Raymond Chandler's L.A.
I'm so glad you said that. I think it does too. And you know, it has a feel of the 50s to me. Albuquerque. So much of the building, I think, in Albuquerque was done after the war.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
There's an awful lot of that sort of, you know, your basic 50s box kind of routine in Albuquerque. But you're right, I think.
And there's a lot more to Albuquerque than that. And actually, Albuquerque has a lot of different neighborhoods and different types of people.
And it's grown a lot.
Oh, it's growing, and it still is. It's growing enormously. But I didn't realize, this was '84 when I started.
Right.
And I didn't realize that anybody else was doing it. And actually, there probably weren't as many people doing it in '84, or many women. But I think Sue Grafton and Sarah Paretsky had both come out by '84. But I wasn't aware that anybody else was writing this kind of book with a heroine. And so the book actually didn't come out until '88. So I started in '84.
North of the border, really? Was it 4 years? And
well, you know, I was working then, so I couldn't write as fast as I do now, and it took me a couple years to finish it and a couple years to get it published.
And is the Spanish, or the fact that you introduce people who are from Latin America and there's a strong Latin American connection, does that stem from your time in San Miguel? And
no, actually, I was married to a man from Argentina.
You were?
Who was the inspiration for the kid.
Judy, we've known all these years.
You never knew that?
I never known that. Wow.
And I met him in the Montreal airport. I was on my way to Spain, and so was he. So that's where I met him. But that's kind of where that started from.
I see. And so is that why the kid has a connection?
With Argentina.
He's originally from Argentina, and then he spent time in Mexico before he wound up in...
His family were political emigres. His father was a professor, and they had to leave Argentina during the time of the Dirty War. And so I think he was about 8 when they left. This is the kid, not my ex-husband. But and then so he grew up in Mexico. So he doesn't have this identity as being particularly a Mexican or a South American. You know, he's a little confused as to.
Well, he's definitely Hispanic, but you're right. He does.
Yes, but you know, you can't. I mean, there's a tendency to lump anybody that speaks Spanish together, and you know, they don't see themselves that way. It's very different depending on what country.
And you actually brought in some Argentinians in the lies that bind?
I did.
And now.
And a woman from Argentina called me. She took the book out of the local library, and she said she had, you know, of course, every Spanish-speaking country has different expressions and phrases that they use, as indeed people do that speak English. But she was kind of calling me. I was using one word she thought incorrectly. But she told me she thought I got the Argentine characters down very well, so I was pleased about that.
Absolutely. But, you know, the kid, I was talking to Carolyn Marino, who is not your hardcover editor, but is head of the paperback part of HarperCollins, yesterday about another matter, and we were talking about your books. And because I was telling her how much I enjoyed Hot Shots, and I said one of the things I find interesting is that the kid has really in Hot Shots has a large role and is clearly growing into an automotive entrepreneur, which caught me by surprise because I hadn't really seen him as your basic entrepreneur up until now. And then I remembered when Carol and I were talking that actually in North of the Border he has a fairly large role, and then he kind of seems to become a lesser character for a book or two. And now you're bringing him back to be much more on an equal footing with Neil. I mean, they haven't had a terribly equal relationship in terms of, what do I want to say, maybe professional growth or responsibilities. He's kind of guested in, you know, been or live-in lover or drop-in lover would, I guess, be a much better phrase. How come the change? Or is he just coming back to where he was in North of the Border?
I don't know. The thing is that there's so many other things I want to say in this book. You know, there's only so much, in these books, there's only so much you can do. So
room in each?
Yeah, and I don't really see them as romances. I mean, they are mysteries, and I have some other subject and theme that I want to write about, so there's only so much room. I think that's why he plays a smaller role. But actually, the book I'm working on now involves kids in trouble. The issue is these young teenagers that are committing horrible crimes, and at what age are they starting to be punished as adults rather than teens? And my idea was that a young girl claims there's a gang slaying, and a girl claims that she pulled the trigger, but she's also the only one that can't be tried it's too young to be tried as an adult. And I didn't know what the cutoff age was in New Mexico until a 14-year-old girl walked into a bar and shot the bartender and killed him, and I found out it's 15. So the idea is she's too young, and Neil doesn't really know whether she doesn't really believe that she did it, or why is she claiming that she did it. You know, she's the only one that can't really be punished. But I wanted this to work around my neighborhood, and the kid's a very integral part of this book because he knows these kids, some of these gang members, because he works on their cars and stuff, and he can help resolve the crime. So I think I'm kind of setting some of that up in Hot Shots by having him move into the house and move into the neighborhood.
Well, he has been a little, certainly North of the Border, he was instrumental in helping to the resolution of, and I thought you'd originally brought him in to give Neil kind of this connection to over the border, and also a way to affect some things, because in the Wolf Path, you know, he's very helpful in the patrols and in the crossing over the border, that kind of thing. Yeah, and
he has specific knowledge in that book of the border country that helps solve the crime.
Right. So, I mean, I didn't see him in a domestic role. Suddenly, here he is moving into the house in Hot Shots, and Neil's having this ambivalence, and I thought, wait a minute, what's going on?
My editor wanted that. He really wanted it. He had a big fight about that, but he really wanted him to move in, and I wasn't sure. But as I say, it's going to work out fine in the next book. He needs to be there for the next book.
Well, of course, that's one thing, you know, to bear, I guess as a reader, I need to bear in mind is that the writer has a larger vision or knows where everything is going, and the reader only gets to know what part of it you've written.
Yeah, certainly in a series.
Right. You know? So, you know, you can
I don't know about other writers, but I'm always looking ahead, at least 1 or 2 books.
Well, one hopes
with the series.
I think some of them grow organically, or
they do.
You know, and some of them, sometimes, I'm sure part of it grows out of whatever you're writing, and you maybe didn't anticipate it either, and then part of it, of course, is what you planned.
Yeah, it doesn't always go the way you plan.
Well,
they take on a life of their own, as do your characters. They can be very willful. They don't always do what you want them to do.
He's a wonderful character, and I certainly like Neil very much. You have a couple of other kind of continuing characters. Neil's somewhat interesting secretary. I like her a lot.
Yeah, I dropped your partner, though. I got tired of him.
I saw that he was gone off. They
I didn't
divorced.
kill him off, though. I was nice to him. I gave him a girlfriend and
Jillian Roberts, right?
a new business, but I didn't kill him off.
Well, I thought it was probably time for him to move on. I agree with
I had nothing more to say about him, I don't think.
And it's sort of fun. You do bring back occasionally a character, but you don't have the same kind of gang that some series do in moving forward, which gives you room.
Yeah, I've brought back the Cielo the Psychic a couple of times, and there was that guy March Augusta from Raptor. He came, or he had a phone-in part in the Wolf Path. And there's a assistant DA, Anthony Saya, in the Lies That Bind, and he's coming back in the book I'm working on now. He's a character I like a lot. Very cynical.